Level Up is a regular podcast that brings you topics to help you perform at work and in life at your very highest level. Your host is Dan Chiodo, an executive coach, corporate trainer, and author. He is president of Impact Training and Executive Coaching. And now, here's Dan.
Thank you, Jesse, for introducing our podcast. This is Level Up, the place to go when you want to grow. And we have a variety of guests giving us all sorts of great information, but a big part of it is what their life is all about. So that's interesting too. Where did they start? Where do they come from? Well, today's guest has more than 25 years of vast and significant experience in the consumer packaged goods space area with an emphasis on health and wellness. And she has experience with Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, and extensive entrepreneurial experience as a senior officer. She served on numerous boards, including Jenny Craig, Genuine Health, and LA Fitness Europe. And presently, she is the CEO and president of Vizuri Health Sciences Consumer Products. My guest is Elise Donahue. Elise, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you, Dan. You and I know each other from the gym, so I'm thrilled to be here and look forward to talking with you.
I'll tell you what, ever since I met you, you're such an interesting person, and then to learn all that you've done just makes it even more exciting.
Thank you.
I think maybe we better start and have you tell us just what kind of field you're in, how you got there, and what it's all about.
So what I do is I run brands. So when you go to the store and you see different food brands or health and wellness brands, that's called consumer packaged goods. And what I do and what I have done my entire career is I focus in the health and wellness space. So I actually own products and market them, build them, distribute them, sell them to the retailers, do marketing around them in the health and wellness space. So that means products that I've done include Airborne, the product for boosting your immune system, Chloroseptic, throat spray and lozenges, Clear Eyes eye drops. Those are examples of businesses that I've owned and have marketed them and grown them and then turned around and sold them to other companies. So that is what I do, and that's called consumer packaged goods.
Very good. Interesting. So has your career taken you around the country, or are you basically in Florida?
I have been around the country. I have lived around the country. I, in fact, moved 10 times in 9 years. All of that was driven by different career moves that I needed to make. And then even though now I'm in Florida and I've been in Florida, since 2000, I still travel around the country on a weekly basis. Because think about it, with running a brand, I need to go to advertising agencies. I need to go to retailers. So I'll go to Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas. I'll go to Walgreens in Chicago. I'll go to Target in Minneapolis. I'll go to Albertsons in Boise, Idaho. So that takes me around the country. And then I go to different marketing groups. I go to bankers and lenders. I go to our contract manufacturer who makes our product. So on any given week, I am oftentimes in an airport and oftentimes traveling around the country every week in one way or another.
How do you get everything done? You know, I wrote a book on time management, and it just sounds to me like you probably have it all together, all that you have to do. What does a typical day look like?
So a typical day is a non-typical day. Let's start with that. There is no such thing as a typical day with me, except for my disciplines that I use. And that's really what you're asking about, is how do I run my day to be successful? And it does start with having really core disciplines in place. Understanding what my core mission of the day is, understanding what my priorities, and keeping an old-fashioned active to-do list is very, very important because that keeps me focused on the things that matter, the things that move the needle, the things that are most important for that day. So I like to, for example, interact with consumers. That's very important to me. It really doesn't do me any good to sit in an office. So I like to go out to retail and interact with our consumers and talk to them and hear what they have to say about why they like our product or why they don't like our product, and what would they look for us to do something innovative or to make an improvement to it. So sitting in the office is definitely not most of my time. That is not what I do. I'm out talking to consumers or talking to retailers about ideation on how to thoughtfully grow the businesses. How do we get more consumers into our franchise? What are innovations that are pivotal that will bring more users into the store? Right now, a big hot topic in our industry, no surprise to anybody in your audience, is what do we do to keep brick and mortar growing while we balance it with the newer onslaught of online sales? And so that really has taken a bifurcation of our strategy that takes a lot of time. So I do spend a lot of time thinking about and talking with thought leaders on how to take a traditionally brick and mortar business and bifurcate it into a successful online business, as well as a successful brick and mortar based business.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So it starts with the discipline of knowing what my core focuses are and knowing what our company needs to do this month to move forward towards our mission.
Yes. So you say move toward your mission. Are there different missions for different products, or are you talking about basically your company, Vizuri itself?
In that case, I was talking about the mission of our company, how we are going to be true to what we are, what we stand for, and stay true to it as we move forward and expand. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can expand. You can innovate new products. You can get more users in your franchise. You can go off into a completely different tangent that is not congruent with your core mission of your company. And sometimes those shiny new objects over here that aren't necessarily congruent with the mission of our company look shiny for a moment, and it would be easy to get distracted and move over there. You have to guard yourself against doing that. I feel very strongly that it's important to stay true to who we are and what our core beliefs are. We know who we are. We know what our beliefs are. And so I don't like to get distracted with shiny objects. So I have to fight that the temptation to want to do that.
Yes. You know, the companies I work with, I think it's so important for them to have a strategic plan, know their values, to know their mission. And it sounds like you have that figured out.
Being mission-minded is very important. And then you mentioned a strategic plan. Having a strategic plan that maps out not just this year, but really you need to have a longer-term vision. And I believe that at any point in time, you should always have a 5-year plan. And so we, of course, have a 5-year plan. And it isn't something that you just put on paper and then you shove away and don't look at it again. A 5-year plan is an ongoing working document that you should have front and center in front of your team, in front of yourself and your team every single month, and check yourself and ask the team and check and say, how are we doing against our initiatives and this year's plans, and are we set up for next year's plan? And we're in my field, consumer packaged goods, where that really becomes very core and obvious is when we talk about innovation. I mean, this year, in February of 2020, we already have determined what our innovation is. We have built the innovation, and we're getting ready to ship our innovation in June 2020. While we are ramping up and doing all the activities you have to do to get a product out the door and load it into the stores by June of 2020, we simultaneously need to be working on our innovation plan for 2021. Because in order to activate against a June ship 2021, you have to present it to your retail partners in August, September of the current year for launch in the year 2000. So that is just one obvious example of why a 5-year plan, a roadmap for your 5-year plan is essential. It's not a nice to do. It's not something you should think about. It's something that you need to strategize about, get it down on paper, noodle it around with your team, fine tune it, and get it finalized, and look and breathe it every single month. I personally look at the 5-year plan every single day. And that's one of those things, one of those disciplines that I do to keep me grounded in what truly are the important things that need to be accomplished this month, the next 6 months, this year, etc. It's a very much a guiding post.
It's a wonderful idea. I like the 5-year plan method, and of course to have one for this year. There are so many changes that are occurring. Do you find that sometimes the year's strategic plan changes a little more than it used to throughout the year?
It does change. There are always going to be curveballs that come in that you don't expect. And part of your ability has to be nimble and adapt to those appropriately. So I will give you a real-time example of something we're dealing with right now. We are in the pain management solutions business, and the FDA 2 weeks ago announced that a prescription product is now coming over the counter as a drug product, and it's coming right smack into our space. So it's called an RX to OTC, meaning over-the-counter drug, an RX to OTC switch. That is coming right into our space. Nobody saw that coming. So now here we are in February of a very important growth year to us. And now we have this new big thing that's going to come and hit us right between the eyes in spring of 2020. So there is a concrete, perfect example of we need to bob and weave a little bit. Now, how we deal with that is we think about it strategically. Understand what this product is that's coming into the marketplace. Understand what the strengths and benefits of it, and compare it to the strengths and benefits of ours, and determine where their vulnerabilities are and where we win. And then look at that and take that with our group, not me in a room by myself. That's never how it should work. I circle the wagon with our team and we look at the facts. We don't get emotional. We stay calm and we look at strengths and weaknesses of their product versus our product. How should we position knowing that they're coming in? Do we want to do proactive marketing ahead of the curve? Or do we want to ride their coattails because we know they're going to be spending $20 to $50 million, and maybe we can ride the win that they create along with them? So these are all things you need to stop, think, and plan for as soon as you hear them. The worst thing you can do is sweep it under the rug and not react to it. The other worst thing you can do is go frantic and go crazy and go berserk and be running around like crazy, trying to think, what should I do? What should I do? Calmly gather the facts, sit down as a group, talk about the pros and cons, and lay out a strategic plan. Sleep on the plan, come back and talk about it the next couple of days, sleep on it again, and then come back and do a final refinement and then kick it into action. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. You do have things that come in that you need to react to. And it's part of being a good leader, managing through those things and keeping the team focused on the things that are important. So for example, for our company, with this event that I just described, we have to stay the course, keep doing what we're doing. Don't take our eye off our innovation, keep innovating and make sure that we hit our windows that we need to hit. And simultaneously think about this plan that I just articulated and determine how best to execute it. A leader has to be the one that keeps the team focused, keeps the team informed, keeps coming back to what our objectives are, not letting the team go astray. It would be very easy to get sidetracked by something with the magnitude of what I just described. It would be easy to go off and start doing things that we normally wouldn't do. No, protect yourself. Do not do that. Stay your course. think through it, act appropriately, be a leader that you need to be in these times of change. There will always be change. Change is inevitable. It's how you react to the change is your discipline that you have to learn.
Well, I think you have a great reaction to the change. I really think that there are people who sweep it under the rug. Mm-hmm. There are people who are doing all this activity but not getting any action. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at it and trying to figure that out. So that's also a great thing for your team members to see.
Yes.
That you're not afraid of this, because if we are afraid of it, then we may not think clearly to figure out what we're going to do.
It's very easy to become paralyzed with fear. Don't let that happen. It's very easy to overreact and cause panic amongst the company. Don't let that happen. You know, as the leader, you know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, then you have a strong team around you. So that's when you pull in your resources, use people. Do not ever isolate yourself and think you need to figure this out in a vacuum. Bring your core advisors around the table and figure it out together.
That's a wonderful message. I want to talk about your team in a moment, and there's much more to cover. Oh, many more questions that I want to ask you. This is Dan Chiodo, and I'm here today with Elise Donahue of Vizuri Health Sciences Consumer Product. You are listening to Level Up, a place to go when you want to grow. We'll be right back after this. If you just tuned in, you're listening to Level Up. My guest today is Elise Donahue, the CEO of an organization that is incredibly interesting, Vizuri, and I want to talk to her more about it. I want to talk about your team. Tell us about your team.
So we are an entrepreneurial company. I should start there. That what that means is we have a small team of people. Everybody does a lot. These are people with experience who know how to go in back doors and side doors to make things happen. My business model is keeping the team small, but having everybody extremely, extremely productive. So the team that I have right now that is my core team, there are 6 of us that are a core team. And in consumer packaged goods, the disciplines that I believe are absolutely the most important are sales is number 1. Number 2, marketing. Number 3, innovation. Number 4, operations, meaning getting the product produced. Number 5, consumer support. And number 6, finance. So you have to really focus on sales, marketing, and innovation. Then you have to make sure you make the product well and make sure that it delivers on the attributes that you promise to your consumers. Then you need to make sure that you're interacting with your consumers, getting insights and servicing them very, very well, and then doing all of that in a very financially prudent way. That's why I say those 6 disciplines are the 6 most important disciplines to raising a product, which is what consumer products means. You have to raise products and bring them to life.
That's wonderful. Tell me, your team, are they on site or are they around the country?
So 3 of us are on site here in the office every day. The other 3 core members that I just spoke of, they are in different parts of the country. And oftentimes we talk about How do we keep communication really strong, considering that we do have a lot of remoteness? And so I will say it is very possible with very strong communication to have a remote company. But there's some tricks to the trade that I believe are essential to making that kind of a platform work. And it starts with excellent, fulsome communication and frequent communication. I am a big fan of Zoom and other video conferencing mechanisms because there's something about seeing the person, seeing their body language as they're talking, being able to interact with them as if you're sitting right there at the desk. A phone does not take the place of a video conference. I encourage our team for every discussion that we're having to jump on Zoom and have the conversation. That allows you to have solid and frequent communication that feels like you're sitting there together. Now, all of that is good a lot of the time, but still I believe that the good old-fashioned get-togethers in person with a set agenda, with set topics, is also equally as important. So in our company, we have our full team together 1 week a month. And I'm going to stress that it's not just to be together 1 week. It's to have a core reasons to be together. So that means you have to be very diligent about planning. What are the core topics that we want to talk about when our core group is in town? It's not enough to identify the topics. You have to identify them. Then you have to flesh out what are you trying to accomplish. And then you have to hand out homework assignments so that everybody has already thought about the topics at hand. They've prepared some information that gets to an endpoint. Then we all come together. We have we choose one of us to be a moderator of the session, and we run that topic. And we generally, in a 3-day period, have 6 meaty topics that we're handling. So that works out to 2 core topics a day. I think that number is somewhat important because if you think you're going to sit around and have really good, stimulating, actionable conversation for 12 hours, I think you're kind of fooling yourself because there is such a thing as fatigue. You need to get up and walk around. So we try to do 3 hours at a time, take a break, go look at email, go return phone calls, go walk around outside, then come back and we do another topic. Then we take a break, etc. Then we come back. And then there's usually, if you do 2 topics, there's usually in that scenario I just laid out, there's follow-ups. So the topics have been fleshed out in the first 3 hours and then in the second 3 hours. And then the last 2 hours we spend coming back and saying, okay, there were some follow-ups from that first topic. John, did you find out what's the timing on which we can start production on this? Or sales, when can you get in to see Walgreens? When can you get in to see Kroger? Come back with those answers when we get back together at 4 o'clock, see what you found out. So we allow 2 topics, about 3 hours each, and then we come back at the end and we pull our team back together and we summarize the key learnings from the day and summarize what the action steps are and discuss any little minor follow-ups that were discoverable during the course of the day. If we do that for 6 topics over the period of 3 days, that's a lot of meat. And then that bookends and gives Monday and Friday to be able to do real work, real action, because when you are doing those types of meetings, your business doesn't stop. The world is still going. Lots of things are still happening. So you don't want to isolate your team in those 3 days in a way that prevents them from getting their work done because then they just leave frantic. So you want to allow time to get your regular work done while still accomplishing these core subjects. And I'll come back to where I started, which is having the topics thought out and fleshing out the key things that you're trying to get to is really imperative to make it a productive, successful, action-oriented discussion. Because when it comes right down to it, pontificating doesn't do any good. You've got to come to a point and make a decision and act on the decision. And that's what we try to do during those 3 days.
You know, you mentioned earlier about the fact that you need your team, and everything you said is really, what you're saying really supports that. And I think I heard you say that you actually have them moderate some of the meetings. So do they share that? They each
Yes.
get a chance to do that?
Yes. In fact, I rarely moderate a meeting. Thank you for asking that. That's very important. Earlier we talked about using your resources of your team. Don't do things in a vacuum. The team needs to be empowered. And the team is empowered when they have an assignment. And then when they have an assignment that results in them moderating a meeting, they take real ownership of it. And that's what you want. You want a team where each person feels like, acts like, and believes in their heart and soul that they are owners of the company. And that's the kind of company that I set up. And when I say we're an entrepreneurial company, they all have shares in the company. They are all owners of the company. And so to have each person act like an owner, behave like an owner, feel like an owner through and through, they have to be given the opportunity to be a leader and an owner. So yes, they moderate all the time. I rarely moderate. I interject comments often, but they run the show and different person runs each topic.
That's good. And, it sounds like those monthly meetings you have, there's a lot discussed, a lot to do, but I love the fact that you provide some breaks between that, because that seems to me you'd be more creative, more action-oriented if you just do get those breaks. You mentioned... Can I just mention,
Dan, can I mention this, that oftentimes we start our meetings in the morning. I have people come in early, and we have a yoga instructor or a meditation expert or some kind of a mind, body, soul person come in, and we do an hour session before we get into work. And this brings my personal lifestyle beliefs to the company, where I think people need to feel energized and powerful, and their bodies have to move, and learning about meditation and yoga and thoughtful eating and all of those things that are important in a healthy lifestyle is really important to me. And it's important to me that our team is exposed to those things, because I think that a happy team is a healthy team, and a healthy team is exposed to all these types of things that then hopefully they can go into their personal lives and adopt and do yoga at home, or start their day with a stretching exercise or a breathing exercise. So we oftentimes start our mornings with that.
That is an excellent idea. In fact, if you think about it, if you look at churches, many times if they have meetings, they always start with a prayer. The minister might be there to start with a prayer. You are in the health field, so you start with doing something that is going to be great for the body. And that's a good question. How many of us do that? How many companies start with something that reminds us this is why we're here? This is why we do what we do. So I applaud you for that. I think that's wonderful.
I mean, we have to each ask ourselves, why do we wake up every morning? What is it that we want to do? Why do we wake up? What's our motivation to wake up? And living a healthy life happens to be one of mine, and I love empowering other people to live a healthy life. I have to mention something that I think you'll appreciate. At one of our recent team building health and wellness things that we did in the morning, we learned in one of our classes to stand in a circle and to stand in the pose, the yoga pose, where you have your leg bent, and so you're standing on one leg. And we stood in a circle and we pressed into each other. And the whole purpose of that was to lean into each other and to see that we rely on each other. So we did that a couple months ago, and I was really proud of one of my team members who this week said, let's all get in a circle this morning. And she led us getting into the circle and doing that exercise again. And I thought, wow, that's really cool that she adopted what we learned 2 months ago.
Yeah. Wow. What a great moment.
Yeah, it was.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning when we started that we met at the fitness center, and we did.
Yes.
And so I found a quote recently, and it reminded me of you because you really dedicate yourself to fitness and go all out. And the quote is, pushing yourself physically reveals what you are made of mentally. So talk a little bit about whether you agree with that, and tell us about your morning regimen, the fitness part.
Okay, so let me make sure I got that right. Pushing yourself physically equals what you are made of.
Yeah, mentally. Yeah.
Okay, mentally. So I believe that is true. And here is why I say that. And I'm basing that on my own life experiences, okay? So I say that is true because in the businesses that I run, these are high stakes businesses that I do. We are very fast paced. We have high expectations of revenues. I mean, our companies we move the needle going from a 10 million revenue company up to 300 million in a year and a half with 15 people. I mean, we have very lofty goals and we achieve our goals. So with that comes certain stresses and pressures. And you have to be able to take the blows when they come and to get up and stand up and go another day. And so pushing yourself physically equals what you are mentally. In my life and my companies, we have to be tough. We have to be strong. We have to be resilient. We have to be able to conquer. We have to have courage. Those are the attributes that it takes to do well and thrive in the types of businesses that I do. I'm in a to be honest with you, I'm in a male-dominated field. I'm obviously not male. I'm this little blonde girl. I have to be tough. I have to stand up with the big boys. And in my fitness routine, which is what you're asking, I feel like absolutely those same attributes apply. And I do those things. When I'm working out, I'm intense. I mean, I am mission-minded in what I'm doing. There is nothing I can't do. If my trainer tells me that I have to do 100 push-ups, I'm getting down there and I'm going to give it my all to do 100. And if I can't do 100, I take a pause, I regroup, and I go and I start up number 31, number 32. And if I have to stop again, I regroup and I go number 66, number 67. The dogged approach to fitness, the not having excuses for not showing up on a day, the making excuses why I can't work out. There's none of that. There can't be room for that. Just like in my work world, I can't say, oh, I don't feel like coming to work today. Stop the world. I can't do that. I can't tell my team, oh, I'm not showing up, but you go ahead and handle it. I don't feel like doing that today. I can't say that. When something unexpected happens, I can't just fall over and break down and not know what to do next. You got to keep on going. Exercise is a great way to learn how to push yourself, to learning how hard you can push yourself, to pushing through even when you don't want to do it. I mean, I go to exercise on days, and there are days when I don't want to go. I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd rather stay in my PJs, get in bed, and pull the covers up over my head. But I don't do that. I get up. I made a commitment. That I'm going to the gym. I go to the gym and I push through it. And, 5 or 10 minutes into it, I forgot that I wanted to be in bed in my pajamas with the covers pulled over me.
And that is the
resilience. It's called can-do attitude. It's called I'm going to do it even when I don't want to do it attitude.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So yes, I agree that pushing yourself physically is indicative of how you are mentally. Absolutely.
That's great. Well, I think this is a good time to wrap up. I wish this were one of your monthly meetings and we could go 6 more hours, because
Yeah.
this is going to be mandatory listening in the Level Up Library. Thank you so much, Elise.
Thank you. I appreciate your insightful questions, and they really caused me pause for thought. So thank you.
Yeah, and our viewers should know that sometimes people want the questions, and sometimes people say, well, let's just wing it. And you're one of the few that said, let's just wing it, and it's perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you.
What a great Level Up. And thank you for your time to view Level Up. Always appreciate that. You can listen to it now on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google, as well as and a special salute to Storm Cloud Marketing, who pulls this all together each month. Look at the show notes for what Elise had to say today. Look at some things that you could use for your organization. Think about strategy. Think about core values. Think about the dedication that you could provide, and get some action going instead of just activity. Make things happen. Things are changing in this world, and you need to be prepared for that. So until next time, we'll see you on Level Up. Cheers.